Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Berrier, and I'm here with Erin Mahoney. What's up?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm real good. Corey, how are you?
I'm good. So I'm super excited to get into this conversation with you. We connected a while back, and your brand caught my eye, and I thought I would ask. I wanted to know more about that, and then also the fact that you're sober
Yeah.
also caught my eye. So, could you tell everybody a little bit about you and the name of your company?
Yeah, my name's Erin Mahoney. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. And the name of my company I just started this year is The Roofer. It's all one word, ROOF, capital HER.
And it stands for exactly what it is, right?
Stands for exactly what it is. It's being a female roofer in the industry is there's so few of us. And then as a female owner operator of a roofing company, it had to scream, I am a female owned and operated roofing company. And there came the pink into the equation, which I've never been a pink girl, but the hot pink on my truck and in the brand is I've learned to love it. So there was really no other way to do it, in my opinion, as far as marketing and branding, because it's different. It's just different.
Well, and you're, like you said, to echo what you said, you're in a male dominated industry, just like HVAC, plumbing, roofing. It's all male dominated. There are a lot of female, I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know how many, but I know that there are females coming into the trades. And so, what's that been like? I imagine you've got to overcome a lot of shit, if I had to guess.
Well, I can tell you the percentage. I was just at a women in roofing breakout session, and 4.6, we occupy 4.6% of the roofing industry. That's not women that climb on roofs, that's not owners, and that's women in the industry. I learned pretty quickly that I had to know way more than the boys had to know, just simply because I can't bat my eyes. And yeah, it might get somebody to answer a door if I knock on their door, but what comes with that? I think it's like a catch 22. Yeah, they might open the door for me, but I have to know way more than anybody else for them to actually work with me. Getting on a roof doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
Getting it done and building it, that's what pays the bills. And I can't do that without knowledge and expertise in the industry to back up whatever it is people think I do at the door, like bat my eyes. There's a misconception that it's 10 times easier as a woman.
Well, so how have you been able to overcome that after you get in the door, get on the roof? I'm sure if you're speaking to another man, that they're probably thinking, well, this is where the buck stops. Like, there's no way this lady knows anything about roofing because she's a female.
Yeah, and not only that, like my size and my stature, I'm like 5'2", 100 and a little bit of pounds, and I hop out of a big giant pink and black truck, and it's just never what they expect. But what I have found is that I have taken advantage of every training and every course that's been put in front of me. And I go to continuing training in the insurance side of these things 3 Tuesdays a month. And I am educated and I do know a lot about the industry, more than I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but more than a lot of the people, most of the people in this industry that I know. And so that's all I have to do is I just have to be able to sit there and have an intelligent conversation about what the issue is, what the solutions are, more of a consultative way. We can do this and this. And if there is an insurance claim involved, help navigate them through that process. And just the general feedback has been people are blown away by the knowledge that I have in the industry. And I went out and I learned everything that I could. I took advantage of the trainings. I meet with the adjusters out there and have conversations with them. And in the very beginning, when I started doing this, there was no training was offered to me. It was like, here's a shirt and a business card and go sell roofs. And I didn't know a shingle went on the top of a house. Honest to God, I had no idea anything. And they just said, go sell roofs. And I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot to know. And I knew enough to get by in the beginning by just being honest and saying, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out. But quickly, and I quickly learned that I needed to listen and learn and train and just soak everything up like a sponge. And I love school. Was really good at school. And so the learning part of it was a lot of fun and exciting for me. And I continue to learn, and that's how I stay ahead of the competition. And that's how I'm able to help the homeowners out the best way possible.
That's interesting because I've been to, like, I went to this weekend mastermind with nothing but roofers. And what I realized when I got there, because my conception of a roofer is that somebody that I didn't really think about the sales side of it necessarily, which is surprising. But I thought, well, they must be putting the roof on. They must know. But the truth of the matter is, what I found was I'm sitting in a room with 50 other roofers that they're really just glorified salespeople because they're not actually putting the roof on.
Well, I guess it depends on what you want to put into your position. My position before I was an owner was a project manager, but a project manager to me isn't just standing on the ground and barking out orders. It's like getting my hands dirty. I do my own repairs. Like this is stuff I had to learn in the beginning. I had asked for help from the people in this industry that I worked with. I'm going into my fifth year doing this. And when I would ask for help, it was like ignored. And so I was like, I'm going to stop asking for help. So, in order to stop asking for help, I have to learn to do these things on my own. And that's what I did. And that's what I do today. And I'm super grateful that I learned all that because I think the more knowledge I have and the more actual hands on experience I have doing these things, the more involved that I can be and the better manager I can be when it's being built. Could I install a roof? I'm sure I could. Do I want to? Absolutely not. I would rather sub it out and pay my crews. They do a fantastic job. They are truly the unsung heroes in this industry. They do a wonderful job, and I'm super grateful for the guys that I've.
Was it hard to get the crews to work with you as a female? I would imagine there's probably a lot of shit talking that goes on with that.
Most of it I don't understand because it's in a different language, but I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm trying to learn at least like the basics. No, it wasn't because I worked with these guys before, and I've had no, it hasn't been at all. As a matter of fact, I've been overwhelmed with people messaging me like, "Hey, do you need crews? Hey, do you need crews? Hey, do you need crews?" Like, I don't, but thank you. But no, that hasn't been an issue at all. And they're great guys, man. I get to pick the people that I want to work with and the people that I trust to put the roofs on the people's homes that I work with.
So, how easy has it been? So, you got your start obviously with a different company. So, my guess would be since it is a male dominated, egotistical industry, that there had to be some bumps in the road.
Yeah. So I think you brought up that I was sober. And so I think a lot of that has to do a lot of the way I conduct myself and that I do life is what I've learned in recovery. And my life depends on it. And the first thing that we learn in recovery is selfishness and self-centeredness. That's got to go away. And with that is my ego. I operate with humility. And that doesn't look normal in this industry. And so I believe that operating with humility and kindness and decency and honesty has been mistaken for weakness.
Yeah,
And
I bet.
that's what I've learned over the past four years in this industry. So yeah, there were bumps in the road. I've felt like I was fighting. The companies that I worked at were like fighting against me. Didn't feel real great when I was there. So I made a change. I left the first company that I was at for 3 years, went to a different company that had actually a female division of the company. And I thought, oh my God, well, this has got to be the least gross of the gross.
Right.
And I'm sorry, it's not been a great, the homeowners have been great to work with as a woman. The industry itself, the men in the industry have not been fabulous.
In what way?
It's a lot of disrespect, a lot of I can deal with shit talking and I'm in a male dominated industry and I've been sober for 4 years. That's not that I can't handle comments or things like that, but sometimes it's just over the top and completely absurd and uncalled for. It's just I just want to go to work and do my job like a man. And it seems to that hasn't been the case. I haven't been able to do that. So I started a company that had a female division and I thought, God, this has got to be where I'm supposed to be. And I noticed really early on that there wasn't respect there either. Very early on in my tenure there, I we were out of town and there was another employee, a male coworker that like was physically threatening to me. Like I thought he was going to punch me in the face and I brought it up and it was just like, okay, well, you don't have to be on his team. And that seemed a little, I was like, okay, that's cool, but it was just never brought up again. And I had tried to I was at the beginning, it was the beginning of last season. So a year ago, when I very first started, I tried to communicate what I needed to better produce because money doesn't motivate me like it motivates most people. And I think a lot of that has to do with recovery and living a sober life is that I don't chase money. I've had more money than I knew what to do with before I was sober and I was miserable. So I know that's not what makes me happy. And so I'll produce and I'll work enough to pay my bills and live comfortably if I don't feel valued and appreciated. There's five very simple things I need out of any relationship in my life, but certainly a business relationship. I need to be seen, heard, appreciated, valued, and respected.
Yeah.
None of those five things include money at all.
Right. It makes
And so I haven't had those things. And so I know how to communicate effectively, but it takes two people. And so as I was talking, everyone else was committed to not hearing me or not caring or overlooking me or thinking I'm just an emotional woman. Oh, just it's all in your head. Just get past it. It's all in your head. Get past it. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Trauma? I'm just supposed to get past that? I shared some information when I started. I had filed a protection order against somebody who had been stalking, harassing me. It was a very abusive situation for 3 whole years. And I had just filed that when I started working at this previous company. So obviously I had to let them know about it because there was a safety concern. He's not allowed to show up at my place of business. And so we had a conversation about that. I was in a place in my life where I didn't feel super safe. And I just thought going to a company that had a female division would be safe. And the things that I shared, I believe, were used against me moving forward. Again, considered weak. Like I didn't ask to be abused. I didn't ask for the trauma. It takes a really strong fucking person to overcome it and to heal from it. And that's what I've been doing. But when it's the same situation, you feel like that at your place of employment where really all you're trying to go is just do a job and be treated the same way that the men are, or a little differently. It needs to be, I guess you could probably tell me, just power through it, man. It's just all in your head. Just get it together. It's not that big of a deal.
so. How big was this woman, the women's side of this company, this division?
There's a couple of girls that worked there. A couple of them were in the office, but I never really understood the whole makeup of it. So there's a couple girls that were project managers, me and another girl, and then there was a couple girls that worked in the office. I was the only one that climbed on roofs. I was the only one that used tools. And so it was like talked about that this is going to be a huge thing and we're going to promote it and this and that. And it was still, I was just like brushed aside and brushed aside. And I just almost felt like, what do I have to do to be seen or noticed or because I'm not too sure at this point. And early on in the season, I was like, I am going to go out there and I'm going to prove all of these fuckers wrong and I am going to show them what I'm made of. And then I just was like, no, I had a change of heart. I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't have to prove myself to anyone. And I'm certainly not going to bust my ass to make a company that doesn't care about me a bunch of money. So I'll work for a couple months and then I'll sit back and I'll just let it filter through. And most of the summer last year, I worked a couple hours a week because I wasn't motivated. I just didn't care.
Yeah. So what was the driving force behind them having a woman's division? I think any company could say that if they've got three women working there. What's the
Right.
criteria? What's the benefit? Why did they do that? It seems like it was, from what you're saying, it seems like it was not, it was, I'm trying to think of the word here. It seemed like it was a front almost.
Well, see, I realized that when I was working there. I realized that because I got my own, like I ordered my own business cards and I added the female division to the business cards. I used my Cricut at home and put the female division on my branded logo shirts because if we're going to do this, it needs to get out there, right? We need to make people aware of it. But it was more photo shoots and pink card hats and honestly, I don't really know. But when I was there, I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel included. I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel seen, appreciated, valued, anything. And so I knew that wasn't going to work for me. And I knew that early on. I don't know how everybody else feels. A couple of them are related and another. So I'm not too sure. But that was my experience going in there as an individual woman that didn't have a male partner, that wasn't family, just as a woman roofer, just as a female roofer. And that was my only connection to the company. And there was talk about getting our faces on the side of trucks. And at this point, I knew I wasn't staying, but I didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was at this huge crossroads because I love what I do and I'm really good at it. But I was ready to walk away from an industry where I can work for 2 months and make six figures because of the way that I've been treated. And it was like, I knew that wasn't the answer because that would be a disservice to the homeowners and the people that I can help. That would be a huge disservice. And I've never been one to just fall down and walk away and quit anything ever. So that wasn't an option. But what am I going to do? Am I going to go trust some other man that's got this that sells me on a bunch of empty promises? I'm not willing to do that again. I'm tired of starting over. Like this is the third time I've started over, going into my fifth year, and that's exhausting. It's just
Yeah.
exhausting. I don't want to do it anymore. But what I absolutely didn't want to do was start my own company. I did not, I've never in my life had any desire to be a business owner, to start a company, and certainly not a roofing company. However,
Here we
I
are.
took this, I took the job out of necessity. I took the roofing job out of necessity. I was barely sober, stayed out of spite, and fell in love with it and got really good at it and realized that my happy place is up on top of a roof and helping people with getting things done that need to get done and treating them in an honest manner with transparency and not bullying them into something that there's a lot of things I believe that I've seen that are done wrong in this industry. And so I know I can't change it single-handedly, but I certainly don't have to add to it. And was I willing to just walk away and not be able to provide that service? That wasn't really an option either. And so I prayed, man. I did the same thing I do all the time when I'm confused and I don't know what to do. Left to my own devices, what I want and what I need. The God of my understanding has zero concern with what I want, but always knows what I need. And I started praying March of last year, March of 2024. And it was not until December 12th of 2024. I was in Chicago. I went out to visit my daughter and grandson, and then there was roofing training out there. It was a 2-day training. I went to that, and it was like near the end of the second day. And it was like, honest to God, Corey, it was like I got hit upside the head with a dodgeball. Like you remember dodgeball, like back
Oh
when we were
yeah.
allowed to beat the shit out of each other and it was okay. Or like a baseball bat just upside my head. And so it was like, and I'd had these little thoughts, but trying to push them away. I have one of my really good friends. She used to tell me because when I first started in this industry, I would call her and I'd be like complaining about the absurdity of what's going on in the company or how they're doing things. She said, "Girl, that is not your company. If you were so concerned about how a company was going to be run, you should have started your own company." And that was for 4 years ago or whatever. And so I kept hearing it, but it meant something very different this time. That kept me level headed and grounded and right sized. Yeah, this isn't my company. Who are you to say, Erin, the way it should be run? And so I kept hearing Mary's voice in my head all summer, all summer. And I just kept pushing it away. And I'm like, nope. And so God was like, well, this one's slow and she's a little dumb. So I'm going to have to hit her with an answer that is undeniable. And of course, the next 2 weeks, I sat not really in fear, but like, oh shit, I guess I'm going to start a company. And so then I leaned into it, man. And when I realized that like when I bought the domain, when I got the domain and when I had my email address, Erin at theroofer.com, and I had my EIN and all of these things, I thought back to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, before I was sober for a decade, at least a decade, man, I begged to die. Every single day I begged to die. I had no desire to live anymore. And God had different plans for me. When I got sober, I think I had a credit score of 450. I hadn't had an actual checking account for a decade. And to think of how far that I've come and what recovery has provided me and a God of my understanding, and not just getting sober, but implementing a 12-step program into my life, providing me with a life that I don't have to escape from because I'm not out here doing people wrong. It's a really beautiful thing. And I just thought about God, I have like not that it's that difficult to get like a website, but I have a website with my company name that I created. That was a big deal to me, and to be able to have a line of credit from my suppliers and just things like this that I'm super proud of how far I've come. I'm so proud. And I didn't do any of this. Like all grace goes to God in the 12-step program of AA. But I decided to do the work to get here.
Just to be clear, you are a licensed roofer.
I am a licensed roofer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so what was that process like?
Oh, that was great. So I had to go in front of the board in the city of Columbus. So just to get, I just have my HICL, which is limited license. I'm going to take the test though, because there is an HICGC license that approves you to do everything on the outside. And so I'm going to do that. But just to get started, I have an HICL license and also my general contracting license. So I'm approved to do roofs, but I had to go sit in front of a board where the owner of the company that I left sits on the board.
Ooh.
And he was not happy about it. It wasn't a great experience. He told me I was going to fail and that I couldn't get a license, just a lot of really negative things. And was the first, when I interviewed with this company, when I sat down the very first meeting we ever had, he said, anybody that starts here that wants to start their own company, I want to support them and help them do that. And my immediate response was, that ain't me. You got to worry about that. Well, things changed. And so I feel like I was forced into this position. And so when I went to him, that was the response. It was basically, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're going to fail miserably. And then after that conversation, I had heard what was being said about me. And so I knew none of it was positive. And there was a lot of negative talk and passive aggressive, like social media posting, which is just wild to me. I don't know. I'm almost 50. And so I just don't understand that type of behavior as adults and as business owners. But I emailed the board and I said, I'm concerned that there might be a conflict of interest. And this was the first time I went. I just went for a second time. But anyways, they said, he's an upstanding member of the board and you'll be treated with respect. And what's the word they use? Respect and I don't know, something fair. I don't know, respect and equality or fairness or something, some word that they told me. I could go back through the email and check. And so I had to go in there and I had to sit in front of this man who I knew was out here shit talking me. And so I sat like on the other side of the room. I didn't even make eye contact. That was the first time I went.
This is the
Um,
company with the women's division.
yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Just want
yes.
to be clear about
Yep,
that.
correct. The company with the women's division. And literally all I did was start my own company. I know that you're not in the roofing industry. People start their own companies all the time, literally all the time. And so I don't know why this was such a big deal, but apparently it was. And so I didn't make eye contact that time. And it was extremely uncomfortable. And I'm usually pretty articulate. And I was not at all. Like when they called me out there and I had to answer questions, I felt like I was like, well, I just felt because it was so uncomfortable and I knew it was saying mean things about me. And then the second time I had to go back, I had found out some more information. And when I went back this last time, I sat directly in front of him and I had to stare a hole in his soul for probably 20 minutes before that man would look at me. And I was not going to stop looking until he had to look at me, knowing that I knew what he had done. And what he had done, I hadn't shared that with you yet, but
Maybe you should.
okay. So when I was getting everything set up, I trusted people to help me do the things that I was trying to set up a company. So I had somebody doing my business cards and my branding and setting up my EIN and with the state and all these other things. And so I got the domain. I have my email at theroofer.com. I trademarked it. I filed the EIN with the Department of Treasury and also had filed it with the state of Ohio. Something had happened with the state of Ohio, I guess. It kicked it back, some type of clerical thing. I sent it to the guy that was helping me. Well, it just never got, I don't know, it just never got refiled or something. And I only found this out because one of the things I forgot to do was open up a bank account. And so when I started having checks that were made out to the roofer, I went to deposit in my old LLC account and they were like, ma'am, this isn't going to work. And so they kicked it back and I was like, shoot, I got to stop real quick and open a bank account. But real quick and open up a bank account is not what happened. So I went in and they asked me if it was registered with the state. And I said, well, yeah, better be. And meanwhile, I've got my trademark paperwork. I've got my EIN with the IRS. I've got all of these things. I've got the domain. I've got all of these things lined up. And the private banker Googles Secretary of State of Ohio, and he has this funny look on his face. And he says, does this name mean anything to you? And he turned the monitor my way. And it was February 18th, which was the day after the owner of that company found out the name of my company, because I went and delivered branded stuff from that company on the 17th. My truck was wrapped by that point in time. So that was the day he found out the name of my company. The 18th of February, he had filed an LLC in the state of Ohio under the name The Roofer. And so
took so he took the name as it pertains to the state, which kind of stops you from opening a bank account and whatever else.
correct. And so I gathered up all of my paperwork so I didn't cause a scene in the bank. And I said, yeah, that name means something to me. His name, his home address, plain as day. I've printed it off and I've used it as motivation. I just keep looking at it. But yeah, so I couldn't. So what am I going to do? You know what I mean? The state of Ohio, where I conduct business, he's now filed an LLC under my brand name because there was a clerical error and he was able to do that. Yeah, that didn't feel great. It didn't feel like somebody that claims to support and empower women in this industry. It didn't feel like somebody that wanted to help. It felt destructive. It felt mean. It felt like a bully. I've healed from a lot of abusive men, and it just felt like one more man with his hand on my fucking neck trying to hold me down and control what I was doing. The problem is that I didn't play ball and I wasn't going to let him continue to treat me like that. And so I left. I don't know. And then I don't know. They say, what is it that they say? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
I believe
I would like to change that and say, hell hath no fury like a man with his ego bruised, because that was absurd behavior. And
yeah.
so that was crushing. That was crushing. I'm a one woman show. I poured all of my own money in just after like slow season too in the winter, and it wasn't even the money, like it was the time and the love, and my daughters helped me with this. I have grown daughters, and all I'm trying to do, man, is stay in an industry that I love and I'm good at, that the men and the owners and the coworkers can't seem to treat me right. I'm just trying to do my job by myself so I don't have to worry about being treated like shit. And I'm trying to maybe leave my kids something other than a childhood with a mother that was incapable of taking care of them the way they deserve to be taken care of. Something other than a childhood where with a drug addicted alcoholic mother. I'm just trying to do the right thing, man, and do the right thing by people. And that was crushing. It was absolutely crushing.
I bet. I can't imagine. And so what happened next? I assume you had to hire an attorney.
Yeah, so that was fun. It's a startup company. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have started their own company, and I'm not the only one. Everybody I know it's not. I talk to everybody that owns their own company, and they're like, "You're exactly where you should be right now." And where I was at was 10 pounds underweight. I hadn't slept. It was a lot, man. It was a lot, and I was just overwhelmed with emotions. There was just a lot, and then so before I ever even made a dime, I had to hire an attorney, provide the attorney with all of the information that says what I had done leading up to this. I trademarked the damn thing back in January. I had the wherewithal to do that. And so the attorneys go, so now I'm 2 grand into an attorney who's put together a letter, a cease and desist letter with all of this is what she did, this is what she did. Clearly you did this in spite and with intent to harm, as I believe that it was, and sent a letter, email, regular mail, and certified mail. I asked him to send it certified mail. So, because I'm like, they'll just pretend like they didn't get it. Let's at least try. Whether they sign for it or not it doesn't matter. But he signed for it himself and no response. Just asking him to dissolve the LLC. That's it. No response. So
Hmm.
my attorney sends a follow-up email, still no response. And so now I'm just like, well, could I sue him and win? Absolutely. I could sue him and win. He doesn't have a fucking leg to stand on. But do I have hundreds of thousands of dollars to take him to court to get my brand back? I don't. He knows that. It's like this David and Goliath thing. He's bigger than me. But what I have on my side is truth and God.
Yeah. So take me back over 4 years ago and what brought you into recovery, because usually life's not going great.
Yeah, man, life wasn't going great at all. But I really just thought that was what I was destined. I thought that was just the life I was destined for.
A life with
I don't
drugs
know.
and alcohol, you mean?
Yeah. And just to die like a worthless piece of shit,
Yeah.
junkie, alcoholic, I just, I thought I was crazy, just completely batshit crazy. And that's how I was going to die. And then I got introduced to the rooms of AA, and I was against the praying thing, and I was like, no, I'll do the rest of it, but you guys can keep that God shit for yourselves. And I learned real quickly. Of course, I white knuckled it for about a week and then was right back where I was at. And I was like, shoot. But I've heard enough meetings and stuff that I was like, these people might be onto something. I didn't really believe that anybody was sober because they seemed real happy and
Right.
seemed very unfamiliar and foreign to me. I had made a note. This is funny. I made a note in my God, if I would go, do you make notes in your in your iPhone? I've got notes for years and years. None of them make any sense. I'll just put something in there, two letters or one name. But I do have one. It was from January of the year before I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. So in 2020, I think, anyways, it was a note I made to tell my therapist that said, I never smile. And I made that note in there to tell my therapist. And I never had an opportunity to do that because I got sober. And with that comes a lot of laughter and a lot of smiling and a lot of tears of gratitude, just a whole different kind of tears that I'd never experienced before. But I do find myself just overwhelmed with gratitude, and it comes out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It comes out of nowhere. But I just think, thank God for unanswered prayers. I really wanted to. I tried to take my own life multiple times, didn't work. I OD'd and I'd get brought back, and I didn't understand why. Like, why can't I just die? Why am I failing at dying? That's a really unfortunate feeling. Like, I can't even fucking kill myself, right? You know what I mean? It just felt like a huge failure. I loved my daughters more than anything, and I couldn't get sober for them, and just feel like a failure. I'm a well-educated woman, and I've been independent my whole life. I moved out when I was 17. I had a house built. I built my own house. I had a brand new BMW in the driveway. I had an 8-year-old. I had a newborn, just all me. I did all these things on my own, and why can't I stop doing this? And God, I hated myself for it. And so I didn't go to treatment. I didn't go to detox. I ended up in a meeting, and the way I ended up there is a little unorthodox. Fast forward the 3 years, the protection order, that goes back to how I got into the room. I was manipulated with the program by just a disgusting human. And so 3 years of complete torture, like getting sober is not hard enough. I was dealing with this ridiculous emotional abuse and just stalking and harassing. And it was insane. And so finally, I got enough strength after 3 years of dealing with that shit to file a protection order. So that's how I got into the rooms, right? And so I don't know, man. What did I have to lose? Work the steps. I was like, what do I have in common with two old white dudes from the 30s? And then I started reading the big book, and it's very early on in the big book. And I'm probably going to paraphrase it, but I believe it's on page 24. It's in italics. And it says, for reasons yet obscure, alcoholic or whatever has lost the power of choice and drink. And that was the first thing that had made sense to me in probably 30 years. Okay, so I might have something in common with these two old white dudes from the 30s. I'm interested now. And then they tell me there's a solution and I got to work the steps and I don't have to. I think that's where having a good education behind you and a high level of education behind you sometimes I think can work against people like us is
Sure.
that I want to find a way to do it better. I want to make a spreadsheet and a Venn diagram and I want to have the pointer, you know what I mean? But I didn't have to do that. And at that point I was so broken. I couldn't even hold my head up. I couldn't even look somebody in the eye. I hadn't looked in a mirror in, oh God, years and years. There was a point in before I got sober, I was like 70 pounds. 70 pounds, that is, just to put that in perspective, that's 40 some pounds less than what I weigh right now. And I'm not a big girl. And so what did I have to lose? You know what I mean? So I tried it and miraculously life just got better. And I was really grateful for the second step and the wording of the second step is because I have a strained relationship with organized religions from my childhood.
Sure.
And so I really wasn't willing to do that. Like I was so broken and beat up and hated myself so much that I needed a God of my understanding that was loving and warm and kind and that was going to hold me and comfort me. And I'd never had a man like that in my life, including my own father. And so I sure as hell wasn't going to turn my life over. I wasn't going to turn my life over to some holier than thou man, because I never felt safe in the presence of a man. And, but I had to be willing to believe in a power greater than myself, just willing to believe. And it didn't say God anywhere in that sentence. And I remember I was at my old place before I broke my lease and moved because of the protection order. It faced west. And so I remember watching the sunset and I was like, I didn't do that. And so that was enough for me. And so from that day on, I just got on my knees and I prayed to whatever that was. I call it God. I don't know what it is. I don't really need to know. I had a lot of questions about Santa Claus. And when I found out the truth, that was really disappointing. So I learned to just not ask a bunch of questions. It works. Maybe if I wouldn't have asked so many questions, Santa Claus would still visit me. It would be fun like that. But so yeah, that's what started it for me. And the relationship has grown. The relationship has grown. I knew if God could keep me sober, God could do anything because I couldn't stay sober for a day. And so I had a couple days together, and certainly that wasn't my doing. That was something much bigger than me. But to see how it's grown in just a period of 4 years, this God I didn't want anything to do with, I trusted enough to pray to for 1 year to decide what I was going to do with my career. And when that answer came, I never ever once thought about not doing it. Not once. And it was hard. There was, especially with this whole brand thing, when I went into the bank and I was just, it was crushing. Like it was crushing. And I go to a therapist. I do trauma therapy. I'm on medication for depression and also for PTSD and also ADD. I can't leave that one out, but they all work magically together and with the therapy. And the therapy has been incredibly difficult, but incredibly rewarding. And so it's like I knew that I knew to mess with my mental health and do some psychological warfare bullshit was the purpose of it. But honest to God, man, it worked for a while. Like I struggled. I'm still struggling. This has been 3 weeks and I feel really betrayed. This is something that I am so proud of, something that I poured everything into, and just trying to live a life as a sober woman with dignity and grace and treat people with forgiveness and kindness. And I know that there's no peace in retaliation. I know there's no peace in retaliation, but I also know that I have a voice for a reason. And I'm done being silenced. I'm done being silenced. I'm done being threatened. I'm done having somebody's hand over my mouth. So this is my story. It was crushing. It was absolutely crushing. And he knew that's what was going to do. And that's what he chose to do anyways. And as much as I tried to will myself off of the couch and to just be strong, that's hard. That's hard when your mind's fighting against you and you just feel like, what the fuck is the purpose? It's like once I'll stand up and I'll have my head above water and I'm like, all right, this is it. This is it. And then it's like, and I'm drowning again. And it just felt like finally I had got my license. That day that I had gone in front of the board and got my license, that was the day I went to the bank and found out. So it was like I was super excited because I just got my license. He said I couldn't get my license. I got my license. Everything was paid for and approved. And I have the certificates and all the shit. And I was on such a high. And I was like, all in the rear view mirror. We're just going to move forward from here. Not 3 hours later, I was at a bank, completely crushed. And that was 3 weeks ago. And I just tried the number of times I've picked myself up on my own over the past 3 weeks has been, I can't even count. I can't even count. I'll
Yeah.
pick myself up enough. It's not sustainable. I can't pick myself up and carry on like a badass for 2 days in a row, but I can do it progressively. I'm just tired of having to keep doing it.
Yeah, I bet. It's
I'm
exhausting.
tired of having to keep doing it. It is. It is.
Yeah, I bet. So would you say that you've been able to get through this because of being in recovery and your relationship with God? I think that's the only way somebody could get through this.
The only thing. The crazy part about recovery is that it works so well. I didn't think about getting drunk or high. Like that's not even an option. I know that's not an option. That'll be miserable. But there's definitely were thoughts like, why am I even doing this? Like, this is so hard. Like, life is so hard. And I literally am just continue to do the next right thing. And it's exhausting. Like, what is the purpose? Why am I sober? Why am I alive? Why am I even doing this? Why am I busting my ass to start a company? Why do I feel like I still have to look over my shoulder when all I did was leave a company? I left all their shit. I paid them to leave. They're withholding my pay. I paid them to leave. And I'm like, for what purpose? What am I even doing? So yeah,
Well, I think it's
God in
also
recovery.
for you to be able to share this experience with other people.
Oh, that's why I've made it through everything I've made it through, Corey.
Yeah.
And it's not just addiction and alcoholism. There are so many things in my life that I have overcome. And that's the thing, man, is that I've overcome them. I didn't play the victim. I didn't let it consume me. I've done the work and I have overcome way harder shit than this. This was just unnecessary and mean, just mean on so many levels. And for somebody that claims to support and empower women in a male dominated industry to really just, in my opinion, be exploiting them, using them as a marketing ploy, and quite frankly, at least in my instance, not giving a shit at all. And instead of supporting and empowering, it seems very destructive and hateful and just mean. It's just mean.
What would you say to if there is a female in the trades, any trade right now that's considering getting into again any of the trades? What kind of advice would you give them so they don't have to go through these same things?
My advice to give them would be have thick skin because you will go through these things. There's no way to eliminate it. There's no way to avoid it. Listen, I'm a bad bitch and they still think that they're going to treat me crazy. And then when I up and leave, it's a problem. You can't treat me crazy and expect me to stay. Not when I've done the therapy and the recovery and the work to heal. There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And so that's what I would tell somebody and have somebody, I would tell a woman that was thinking about it, have a strong woman who's been through it that you can reach out to for support. And I would always offer my name 100% because there's nothing you could do. You can't, I learned in recovery, thank God, that the only thing I have control over is me, my thoughts, and my actions. I can't change anybody else or anything else around me. And so I chose to take control. It's serenity prayer, man. Gotta love it. I chose to take control and change the things that I could change because I do have the ability to do that. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the things around me.
Yeah, you're and to your point, like we control nothing except ourselves, our actions, how we react or respond. That's it. And sometimes that's a damn job in itself.
Listen, right. Responding versus reacting. When I left Chase Bank, God, I wonder if I'm going to get myself in trouble. I had a thought. I had a thought that was not a thought of a sober woman living with dignity and grace. And it may have involved a brick in a window or something of that sort. I don't know, but I was going to retaliate. My initial response was, fuck you. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you worse because that's who I used to be before I got sober. And I was pretty good at it. My words can be really hurtful. And I know that. And I used that when I was in survival mode. Those skills that I used, the manipulation, the fuck you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you worse. And then I'm going to laugh at you while you cry. Like those are skills I don't even possess anymore because I'm a different person. But I still got the same brain, right? I still have the
Right.
same brain. So that immediate thought was, all right, I'm about to fuck some shit up. But I'm incredibly grateful to be able to respond and have a conversation with you about this 3 weeks later instead of doing something that literally just makes me look like the crazy person that they want me to look like.
Yeah.
It's only
Well,
good.
action is a big part of the program, but this was you pausing and not taking action on that thought.
Action is a big part of the program, but even bigger so for me is that pause. We pause when agitated
Yeah.
because my first instinct, I have a friend that always says, they say first thought wrong. I have a friend in the recovery that always says, my first thought's a felony. Second one's a misdemeanor. Third one's probably also a misdemeanor. And so I'm grateful for that ability to pause because my immediate knee jerk reaction is what I've done when I was in survival mode for 40 some years before I got sober. I have to pause to get to the frame of mind that I've learned being a sober woman. And the frame of mind is we don't cause harm to other people, no matter what they do. Justified anger, I don't get to have. Is it justifiable? Hell yes, it's justifiable. But that'll get me drunk and high every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
so,
right.
Yeah. So pause. I'm grateful for the ability to pause and wait for the next right thought or direction from my higher power. It becomes more ingrained into my life because I don't have those situations. I don't put myself in situations like this. I don't put myself in a war. But currently, I feel like I'm in a war that I did not agree to be in. And I'm just fighting for my life and my brand. And it's like, it's secret. It's a woman's name of the business. If you're a man, it doesn't pertain to you. Roof her means I'm a girl. And so I'm fighting to get that back. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always a
So
lesson in everything, right? I don't know what the lesson is, and maybe you don't know yet either, but there will be a lesson,
yes,
whatever that looks like.
there will be. This one's been really hard. This one's been really hard for me to wrap my head around. I know God's always got a plan and I can always go back on that, but like I was really struggling. I was really struggling with God, to be honest with you, for the first time since I got sober. It was the first time I questioned God, like, God, why would you make this decision for me and then allow this to happen? It's not God's fault. So I had to have an out loud conversation with God. There was a thunderstorm, and that's my higher power. And so I knew when it was thundering and raining, he was upset too. I said, I know, man, I'd be upset.
Mhm.
I'm sad and upset too. Some of these people down here are shit. But we had a good conversation, and I know it's not God's fault. There's a lesson in this. I have survived way worse. And that's what I just keep telling myself. I have survived way worse. So never ever mistake my kindness, my humility,
For week.
my ability to pause, it's like, don't ever. That should never be mistaken for weakness because it is the exact opposite. I am literally the most resilient, strongest person I know. I hate that I have to keep proving that. I'm ready to just like thrive and live my life. But this is just one more bump in the road. It's a disgusting bump. I'm not happy about it. If I'm able to look at obstacles more like opportunities, it's my perception has a lot to do with things. If I change my perception, it changes everything.
Yeah, that's true.
But this has been a real hard pill for me to swallow. This one's been really difficult.
Yeah. Well, imagine you're able to, once you get all this stuff situated, you're able to employ other women, share this experience with them, and get what you are hoping to get, which is, well, I don't know if you're hoping to grow the company, but I have a feeling that's going to happen because when women hear this and understand what you've gone through, I think it's going to inspire them to probably join you.
I think that women absolutely should be more present in this industry. We're very good at it. We're very detail oriented. We listen. We don't listen to respond. We listen to hear. And I think that we bring something really cool to this industry. But it even without the other stuff, you hear no a lot when you first start. I don't care if you're a girl or a man or a woman. You hear no a lot when you're at the door. I still hear no at the door. You
Sure.
got to be able to handle that. But I've also been in sales since I was 18. It's the only thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And so I can handle that. But I've never been at a company, like I've never been in a situation where the company that I was working with was like fighting against me. I've always been in the top sales of any company I've ever been with. And the men supported me and loved me and like lifted me up. And it's just a wild subset of people.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that even what it's called? I don't even know if that's what it's called. It's just a very different, there's a lot of ego and like, and I don't operate like that. And so because I don't operate that like that, I don't know, it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I don't know. I'm just never going to be one to beat my chest because I don't deserve that. I didn't do anything. I shouldn't even be alive. Like I'm blessed to have an occupation, a career, a business where I can help people and do something I love. I don't get to beat my chest because of that.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
absurd.
It's really interesting that I often draw on the really shit times of my life when I was drinking or using or fill in the blank. And I use
Right.
that as fuel a lot of times because I know how bad it can get. I know what it's like to feel like you just want to drive off the side of the road or fill in the blank, right? People have all kinds of crazy thoughts. And you mentioned earlier that drugs and alcohol didn't even enter your mind. I get that. Like and if you've been sober long enough, you understand that like there's zero drugs and alcohol are going to help in any situation for people like us. Like it's not gonna make a. I'm not a betting man, but I would bet that your life is going to go far worse if you decide to pour a drink in you or a drug for sure.
Absolutely. That's not the solution. I know that's not a solution. That will make it worse. Like that's where my mindset and my perceptions change. I know that's not the answer. That's going to make it worse. Why do I want to make my life worse? I don't want to make it worse, but I don't want to feel like this anymore either. You know what I mean? So that has my mental health was something that I really had to address and try and overcome a lot of trauma from when I was a little girl, a lot of trauma growing up, trauma in sobriety, just constant one thing after another that, but I'll tell you, man, the number of people that I've been able to help with my stories of overcoming these things is incredible. And it's not just women. It's not just women I sponsor. It's a lot of people go through stuff. And I've always wondered what my purpose was, always. And I know what my purpose is. Like, and I'm aware, I know full well my purpose is to just help people in any capacity. And in times like this, when things are so hard and I'm just so deflated and I don't know if I can get back up again, that's what keeps me going is that God has a purpose for me. And by me overcoming this and by me living to tell about it and by me not running my truck off a road or turning to an easy way out or but just the only way out is through, but just going through it, no matter how painful that is. When I come out on the other side, there's just one more story of hope that there is hope. There is hope in any situation. And I'm really grateful for that. There's a lot of times I wish, like, God didn't give you anything you can't handle. Well, listen, I can handle it, but I just don't want to. Just
Right.
let me live. You know what I mean? But this is just one more thing, man, that I've made it through. And I'm still dealing with it. It sucks, but just everything that I make it through, just more testament to God's grace and
Yes.
my purpose here.
So you mentioned trauma early on. What do you mind diving into that? Like, can you just paint a picture of maybe a little bit about what that was?
Yeah, this took me year. I had repressed most of my childhood. This took me like years of therapy. And so 99% sure that I was molested by somebody very close. Male member of the family. The only reason that 1% is there is because I don't remember the actual act. But so my therapist would tell you, yes, it absolutely happened. I'm going to say 99%. But even I think more so than that, just a feeling of inadequacy. It didn't matter what I did, like wasn't good enough. I felt like I was always, I repressed a lot of it, man. I just don't remember my parents really being there, being supportive. And I talked to a couple of friends from back then and I don't talk to a whole lot of people that I grew up with when I was younger. And I went to an all girls school. I went to an all girls private school, and my education was wonderful. And I was an Olympic level gymnast. I did club gymnastics. And it's like I was still begging for my parents' approval and for them to be proud of me. And I didn't realize how much that affected me until I started this EMDR therapy, which I was like forced into because of the trauma that I was dealing with this like guy with the protection order. And so I was like, I've got to get into therapy. And so I started and I was able to bring up all these other things. And God, that's affected me my whole life. Like this feeling of inadequacy and begging for the bare minimum and always feeling less than and not worthy and not good enough and just begging for somebody to see my worth. Well, when you don't love yourself and you don't know your own worth, nobody else can see it either.
Right.
And so I had to, again, change me. It had nothing to do with the people around me not seeing my worth. It was that I didn't see it. And until I saw it, I was going to always accept
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. So so let's back up for a second because this rings a bell with me. And you and I have talked about this a bit off of this or away from the podcast. So I didn't realize that I have been seeking approval for years. And I just realized this in the last 6 or 7 weeks. I just didn't realize that things that I dealt with, and I didn't deal with being molested or being beaten or anything of that magnitude. So I can't identify with that, but I can identify with the constant approval seeking. And then I think about the years. Well, I don't even know when it really started. I guess I can guess early childhood, but all the years in between the last 7 weeks and early childhood, there's a lot, not weeks, years. There's so much there. And as I look back at past relationships and how those have not worked out, a lot of the things, it was always somebody else's fault, of course.
Right.
But the truth of this matter is, like you said, it really wasn't their fault. It was how I showed up and how I was trying to seek approval and doing things that I thought would be validating for the other person to validate me, except for they didn't know I was doing them for that reason. I didn't know I was doing them for
Right.
that reason. So it was quite humbling to realize that though that a lot of the things in previous marriages and previous relationships were all my fault because of this approval seeking codependent person that I've been living with for the last upteen decades. And so there's some freedom to that, but then there's also not at first. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how did how did this happen? But now that I understand, and look, I haven't gone through 6 weeks of talking to a therapist. So, like, I'm just cracking the book on this. And I've read a bunch of books on codependency and adult children of alcoholics and dysfunction. And so I understand more at an intellectual level why I've done these things, but I wouldn't say that I've necessarily worked through them. And so they still come up. The feeling of rejection still comes up. And sometimes it's that feeling of rejection is because I'm not saying what I want or saying what I need, but assuming you're going to know what that is. And then if I don't get it, I'm rejected. And it's hard as a man to say or maybe not as a man, maybe most men do. Fuck if I know. But what I do know is sometimes it's hard for me to say what I want because of the fear of rejection, which all stems from that approval seeking. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I was always like, I had this just incredible fear of abandonment, just debilitating fear of abandonment, not even knowing. So I had everything that left my life had claw marks in it, and none of it was supposed to be there. So after doing the work, like, and I realized my value and what I bring to the table, the people like I don't lose people anymore, man. People lose me. Like I know that, and that was a real for me to be able to hear to sit here and say that to you and actually mean that. I know that's the truth, man. I know I'm a good person. And so if people want to go, they can go. You can go. And if I don't feel appreciated or the what's going on is reciprocated, I can go too. I never used to be able to do that. But that's why I stayed in abusive situations. I would have still been at this other company crying, miserable. My mental health would have been fucked, and I'd been laying on the couch because I wouldn't have had the strength to stand up for myself and walk out the damn door. That's all from recovery and all from therapy, all of that.
Yeah, but you didn't know that, right? You would have been laying on the couch not knowing why you were laying on the couch.
For sure. I would have had no idea. I would have just stayed
Right.
miserable.
Yeah.
And my mental health would have been tragic. I wouldn't have been a use to anybody. I would have probably ended up in the psych ward. Like there would have been a host of things that would have gone terribly wrong. But and sometimes, listen, this is something new for me. And so I operated in a certain manner for 40 some years. And so that little girl still comes up every once in a while. You know what I mean? Because we've worked on this adult Erin, healing this portion, but there's still work to do on the little girl. We've done some, but she's still a broken little girl in there. And sometimes she pops out and wreaks havoc. And I do get scared. And I do question myself and I do question everything about me. And I do feel less than and I do feel unworthy. And but it doesn't last. It's not consistent. There are thoughts that I'll have that I can beat though, because that's not the reality. That's not the reality. That's that little girl in there that still feels that way because she had to have a safe grown up. She had to have a safe grown up Erin to be able to pull her out of that mess. But yeah, sometimes that happens. It's not a perfect science. This situation right here, dude, has been crushing. I have second guessed my ability, which sucks, dude, because there's no reason I should question my ability. None at all. I know I can do this. Is it going to be hard? Hell yeah, it's going to be hard, but I can do it. But I've questioned everything about myself. But I think that was the goal,
And
you
that's the
know?
little girl, though, just
Yeah.
doing it
Yeah.
questioning.
Yeah. So, but the grown up Erin, though, she's a bad bitch and she'll pull herself up by the bootstraps and she'll get back out there and wipe her tears off and put war paint on. And this won't be the first time I've done it. It won't be the 1,001st time I've done it. I don't stay down. I might get down. I might cry it out. I might be pissed, but I'm going to come back like stronger. That's the crazy thing about healing is that the when you feel like you're like breaking, this like when you feel like you're just broken and all the pieces are laying on the ground and you don't know what to do with them. The cool part about that is you get to pick them up and form them in some type of a foundational structure that is not breakable. And you can leave pieces on the ground that don't serve you anymore. And so, yeah, I might be pieced back together with super glue and a little bit of duct tape here and there. But the pieces that I've chose to bring with me are the pieces that serve me moving forward and that are in alignment with the life that I'm trying to create.
Yeah. Well, we can listen, we can hear, as rough as it sounds, I need to be in a lot of pain to be able to hear the message. I can't hear it if things are going fucking great. I can't hear it if I'm coasting along comfortably. For me, I need to be in pain if I'm going to get the lesson. And as unfortunate as that may sound, I do know when that pain happens and I'm in it, I know it's not going to last. And I do know on the other side of it that I am going to come out stronger and with growth. But man, it sucks being in it.
Yeah, it does. This is the past 3 weeks has been really, I'm telling you, it's been difficult. Like it has been difficult because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good at all. God, just so much hate. This is somebody that claimed to care about me. Matter of fact, the last message I got from this person, I knew that he didn't mean it, was that I loved you. This was on the 17th. I told everybody here when you left that I love you and I would support you and I hope you succeed. This is the last message I have from this person. And the next day, open up an LLC with my brand name. Doesn't feel real good, man. It feels dirty.
Well, he's going to get likely what's coming to him at some point.
I'm not too sure. You know what I mean? I can't sue him. He knows that. I really just want my brand. I don't even want anything. I don't care if I could go to court and sue him and win $3 million. I don't give a shit. I just want to move on with my life. I want the name of my company back. And that's it. That is literally it. All you had to do was just dissolve it, answer my attorney, and then we wouldn't be in the situation. But I do have a voice. God gave me that voice for a reason. I do have truth on my side. So, regardless, with truth and God on my side, that makes me far from weak,
Yeah.
contrary to what anybody else might care to believe.
Yet it's not really our business what they think or believe.
It's not at all. I love to be underestimated. That's when I do my finest work. Spent a lifetime being underestimated.
Yeah.
Almost half a century. Can you believe that?
Well, it is hard to believe, but there's a lot of lessons that you've learned in this half century. And I think you're just getting started. I think that this is going to help women just to, and hell, maybe even some men, you never know, to be some more successful and to have the courage to do things that maybe they wouldn't have courage to do. So, and the fact that you have mentioned to me before that you also go and don't you take meetings in a treatment centers pretty often?
Yeah, I speak at two treatment centers monthly. So 2 nights a month. One night I'm at one treatment center, one night I'm at the other one. So I do that monthly. I've been doing the one for about a year and a half now. There's a women's prison in Marysville. I've spoken there a few times. I've spoken at one of the men's prisons here in town, north of the city, up in Marion. And man, there is just something so fulfilling about doing that. And I couldn't even like articulate what it was the way that I felt after like the first couple times I spoke at the women's prison. I was like, it wasn't humility, it wasn't gratitude, and I couldn't place what it was. And somebody told me about a year later, they were like, that was fulfillment. You felt fulfilled. And I was like, well, of course I couldn't place that. I'd never felt fulfilled
Right.
in my life. Even the things that I thought were fulfilling weren't at all. I was still, there wasn't anything fulfilling. And man, there is just to be able to share a story in a way that people can just relate to, and that you can see, you can feel like the energy, you can feel God in those rooms, and you can just feel that you are getting through to these people. You just tell. And that I've got like a hair on my nose, something that's driving me crazy. But there's just no feeling in the world like that.
Yeah.
Just to be able to tell a story. It's just my story. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's nothing, just my story. Do I have a story to tell? Absolutely, I have a story to tell, but really it's just my story of a lot of things being stacked up against me, a lot of shit that I have to overcome. But man, like I would have never in a million years, the life I have today, I could not have dreamed of in my wildest dreams. And it's got nothing to do with the stuff. Like you can't, the stuff that my life consists of that is beyond my wildest dreams. You can't see. You can't see any of it. Is my truck cool? Yeah, my truck's bad as fuck. I love it. My apartment's great. The dogs are wonderful, but it's on the inside. Like that's what sobriety recovery has provided me. It's a feeling of not having to look over my shoulder because of something I did.
Right.
It's a feeling of when things go sideways like this, what did I do to start it off? Well, nothing. This time, nothing. Being able to go to bed with a clear conscience, or when somebody says, I remember the first time in recovery when somebody was like, hey, we need to talk, but I can't do it until 2 days or whatever. My initial physiological reaction is,
Holy shit.
shit, what did I do? What did I get caught doing? You know what I mean? And then it hit me. I was like, oh, I didn't do anything. This isn't a me problem.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. I remember that very distinctly. It was a weird, and that was just that was a wild feeling because it was just this initial, oh my God, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And then I realized I wasn't. And so there is something to be said for that, man.
Yeah. I agree. Well, Erin, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
They can find me. I have a Facebook page. The website is still under construction. There's a landing page right now, but the website is theroofher.com, ROOFHER.com. My email is Erin@theroofher.com. Personal number 614-588-4620. Business phone 614-965-7551. And I am always here to support anybody that's trying to get sober or a female in the industry. I'm not trying, it's not a Tinder. I didn't throw this out here to get phone calls for dating. Anything business or recovery related would be fabulous. Yeah, I'm here. I'm always here to help. Truly. I know that's my purpose, man. So anything I can do to help, that's what I'm here to do.
Well, I appreciate you and I appreciate the conversation today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate you having me on, Corey. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and watch your growth since you and I have met. It's been a really cool thing to be a part of. So thank you for allowing me space in your life to be a part of this journey.
You're very welcome.